So today we are going to discuss about diaphragm walls. Now we have almost reached up to the end of this unit number 3, and what we are studying in this is different construction techniques, and we have seen quite a few construction techniques till now. We started with the dewatering techniques. We started with dredging actually. After dredging, we went on to dewatering techniques, then grouting, then underwater drilling and blasting, and now we are seeing this diaphragm walls. Now, what is actually this diaphragm wall is, it acts as a barrier between two kinds of interfaces. So in this picture itself, if you see, so this complete wall that you see, so this is a diaphragm wall. Okay. And it is acting as an interface between what? So it is acting as an interface between whatever is the backfill or the sandy type of soil that you see on the left side of the wall. So that's one component, and it is acting as a barrier between this and the open space which is there in between. All right. But actually this is not the, or this is the photo of the final version or final output of your diaphragm wall. Means after it is constructed and then one side is excavated, then this photo is there. On site diaphragm wall, when you construct, you can't see it completely. You can only see the top side of the diaphragm wall. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, initially every, or whatever is the space, empty space that you see now, that I am just drawing horizontal lines. So initially this was also filled with some material or the same sandy soil that was there on the adjacent areas. Okay. And then they constructed first this diaphragm wall. Okay. They wanted to excavate this area, but they couldn't excavate it because it's a sandy soil. So if they just start excavating, sandy soil, it is, or you can't keep it stable. If you remove some portion of it, it will immediately fall, or there will be collapse from the adjoining area, and then whatever you are excavating, the same amount of soil, it will keep on pouring from the adjacent sides. Okay. So you can't directly excavate that area. So what we do is, we use this diaphragm wall. So we first construct this wall within the soil itself, and once the wall is constructed and the concrete sets, then we excavate the material from this middle portion, and now you can see the final output, that how your diaphragm wall actually looks like. All right. So that is the purpose of a diaphragm wall. So from the name itself, you can derive the diaphragm. In our body also, whatever diaphragm we have, so it acts as a sort of a barrier. We say that, now I'm not a biologist, but I guess diaphragm is something related to your respiratory system. Okay, and it separates, or it acts as a barrier between the air that you breathe and the other parts of your body, or whatever is the blood, or whatever is the components. Okay. So similar way, diaphragm wall in construction, it is nothing but it acts as a barrier between two things. One side it may be an open area, and then other side it is a backfill. Okay. Now it is different from your retaining wall. You also might have studied retaining wall in your geotechnical engineering. So retaining wall, that's a different thing, that retains the soil. You will also say that diaphragm wall also retains the soil, but we don't design it as a retaining wall. Okay. So that's the difference between diaphragm wall and retaining walls. So to start with, what actually it is. So it is a RCC structure, reinforced cement concrete structure, and it is constructed in situ. Okay. And generally it is constructed in panels. And the wall is designed in such a way that you can construct it up to a very great depth, up to even 50 meters in some cases. Okay. And as the depth is more, then whatever is the excavation you have to do, that has to be mechanical one, right? So at the bottom, what you see, it's a stage by stage pictorial representation of what goes into a diaphragm wall. So as I told you that suppose we'll take this value itself, that you have to construct a diaphragm wall for up to a depth of 50 meter. Okay, starting from ground level itself up to 50 meter, you have to construct a diaphragm wall. So whatever is the initial excavation you need, that whatever is this ground level. So suppose I'm saying that I have to construct a diaphragm wall up to this much depth. Okay, suppose this is 50 meter. So directly, whatever is the equipment used for this excavation, or the special equipment that we use for this excavation, we can't go with that. What we do is we first excavate some initial portion by our regular means, whatever excavator you have on your site. Okay? So you can use that. So that is shown in this stage 1 if you see. Okay? So stage 1 consists of excavation of first 20 feet of primary panel with clamshell or an excavator. Excavator is nothing but, in layman's term, whatever JCB we say, okay, or people say. So that JCB is actually the name of the company, but that equipment is an excavator. All right. So either you can dig in the initial few meters by this excavator or by a clamshell. Now you know what a clamshell is. We have seen the dredging. So similar thing, or the same clamshell, when you use it here, you can excavate the soil as well. Right. So after this, then you construct something called guide walls. Okay. So or before excavation also, before this stage 1 itself, you construct something called guide walls. Okay. We'll see in the subsequent slides what a guide wall is. For now, just understand that you excavate a guide wall, or you prepare a guide wall, build a guide wall, then you excavate the initial depth. Okay. Then you deploy your machinery, whichever is supposed to excavate this soil for diaphragm wall. Okay, so this is the machinery. Now, if you see, I'll also show you the closer view of the actual machine. So from that, you will come to know that this is actually like excavating or removing a piece of soil from a large bulk. So if what I'm trying to say is, if I show you, suppose this is the area I'm concentrating on, right? And I'm showing you the plan, that is the top view. And I have to suppose excavate, or I want this much area to be excavated. Okay? But the soil is of such nature that if I directly excavate this, I am not going to get a stable slope. So what I will do is, I will first excavate its periphery. Okay, I'll excavate this, and then I'll not excavate this also in one go. I'll excavate it in panel by panel. Okay, suppose I first excavate only this much portion. Okay. So this portion is what you see in this diagram. Okay, so this is the top view, and this is the sectional view, you can say. So you see only a particular or small width, not small, but considerably small width, we excavate, and we go up to the bottom. Okay, and the excavation also, if you see, first we excavate the sides and then the middle portion. Okay, so that is called a trench excavation or trench cutter excavation. That's the stage 2. Okay. Now, obviously, now if I am saying that the soil is weak and it cannot support itself, whenever you dig something in it, it will fall into that pit again. So while this excavation itself, you have to stabilize this soil also. So you have to provide something temporary support kind of thing. Now you know, you must have seen a lot of construction sites till now where you have a concreting of a slab, and then as the concrete to support the concrete till it acquires its strength, we have a temporary support. Okay. We call that shuttering and shuttering. Okay. We have that plates, and then we have rods or bamboos which are supporting that slab. Okay, so that is a temporary support that we give to the slab because the concrete is yet to set. So in this similar way, you have to do something to support the soil, because once you start excavating, the area will be, or you are removing a portion of soil. So there will be void in it or empty space, and that empty space is going to invite the soil from the adjoining area to fall into that empty pit. All right. So to avoid that, what is done is bentonite slurry is injected into this excavated pit. Okay, so bentonite slurry, it is a bentonite. It is a mineral, naturally found mineral, okay, which is almost equivalent to your clay or small. It has a small soil structure. Okay. So you prepare a slurry of it and then you pour it into this excavated pit. So what will happen is, due to that liquid or that slurry, it will temporarily support this excavated pit. And once you do that, then you insert a reinforcement into it, because we are saying that it's a reinforced concrete structure. So you insert a reinforcement. It's a typical reinforcement what you see for a slab. Okay, it is a mesh kind of thing. So generally slab ke liye you have a reinforcement placed horizontally. In diaphragm wall, it is just placed vertically. And once the reinforcement is placed, then our final stage comes is concreting. Okay. So when we concrete it, obviously concrete has more density than your bentonite slurry. And at this moment, or if you concentrate on the stage 4, stage 3 and stage 4 figure or part, so in stage 3 you can see there is a brownish color which is given to this pit. Okay. And in stage 4 that color is gone and you have a gray color. Okay. So this brownish color is because it's saying that there is a bentonite slurry in it. And obviously when you concrete it, you have to remove the slurry, but you can't remove the slurry directly and then concrete it. So what is done is concreting and removal of that bentonite slurry, that is done simultaneously. Okay. Now the concept that is used here is bentonite slurry. It has low density as compared to concrete. Concrete's density is very high as compared to bentonite. So whenever you pour concrete into that pit, which is already having bentonite slurry, so the concrete will go on settling at the bottom and it will displace the bentonite slurry, and the bentonite slurry will start rising. So as soon as it starts rising, you pump it simultaneously. Okay, so the whatever is the rate of rising of that bentonite slurry, you balance it by the pump, whatever you have installed to pump out the bentonite slurry. And then like this concreting and pumping of bentonite slurry, pumping out of bentonite slurry, it goes on simultaneously, and at the end you get a finished panel of your diaphragm wall. Okay. And this is just one panel. Like this you have to go on doing for all the panels and then create a diaphragm wall. So in this figure, so if you look closely, so this diaphragm wall, it was also constructed in panels. So might be this is the panel size. Okay. So first you excavate this much, you fill in the bentonite slurry, you put in the reinforcement cage, and then you concrete it. Once you do this, then you go on to the next panel, then the next panel. So in this way, this whole diaphragm wall, it is constructed panel by panel. Right. And once you get all these sides enclosed, then you can use or then you can proceed with whatever is the construction you want to do. So diaphragm wall is actually not the main construction for any site. Diaphragm wall is just a helping technique or helping hand to whatever is the main construction. So in this photo, I told you that the main thing was to excavate this area. Okay. So to do that, in order to support that soil, then diaphragm wall was constructed. All right. So this is in short what I told you. And now what I have done is I have written stages of your or whatever as the main stages in your or processes in your construction of diaphragm wall. So that I have written. So there is a lot of theory. I'll not go into the reading of this theory. I'll leave it to you what to read in this. I'll just explain stepwise. So the first step is you have to construct a guide wall. Okay. Now the purpose we are constructing guide wall is we want to have a firm support at the top, because later on whenever we are going to start the deep excavation, there will be a lot of heavy machinery which will be there on this or nearby this opening of this excavated pit. Okay, so maybe there is a pump which will be installed here later to pump out the bentonite. There will be a concrete mixer or a transit mixing truck which will be there here to pour the concrete. Okay, so there will be a lot of things going on in the periphery of this excavated trench, and because it's a soil, we are saying that the soil is not sufficient enough to take its own load and it will fall into the pit. So to give a temporary support kind of thing, a guide wall is constructed. Okay, and this is the guide wall, the blue color, whatever you see. So these are the guide walls that are first constructed, and then the excavation actually starts. So what will happen is initially you suppose excavate this much by the excavator or the clamshell, and then later on you go on excavating using the clamshell, or you have some other techniques of excavating. So in that process, when you support this initial depth, then the soil will not collapse immediately, and once you go on excavating, you also go on filling the slurry, bentonite slurry. So here you see these arrows that are there from, or brown color arrows that you see. So this indicates the earth pressure. Again, go back to your geotechnical engineering, recall the retaining wall concept. So you had a earth or backfill pressure was there, which was the active earth pressure, and then you also had a passive earth pressure, and then the balancing of the pressure was done by this retaining wall. So self weight of this retaining wall, it balanced this pressure. Okay. So in the similar way, whenever you excavate something in soil, there is obviously a pressure which is there from the side of the soil, and that has to be balanced. So that is balanced by this bentonite slurry. So this black arrows, whatever you see, those are pressure, or that is the pressure due to the bentonite slurry that we are inserting into the pit just to counterbalance the pressure from the soil. Correct. So the first thing is guide walls. The second thing is trench excavation. That is the actual excavation of the pit. So in that you can mainly, or earlier when the technology or the concept of diaphragm wall was very new. So at that time the grab dredging, if you recall the grab dredging, so in that whatever the grab or clamshell you had, okay, this kind of, I just draw a vague diagram kind of thing. Okay. So whatever this grab or clamshell that you had in your dredging also, so the same was used in trench excavation, and later nowadays there has been a sophisticated equipment for it. I'll come to that later. Okay. And in case of, if you have a boulder, now this I'm talking only for soil, but if there is a boulder or some hard rock in it, so you need some chisel kind of tool to break that rock. Okay. And then using the grab or the clamshell, then the broken down rock pieces, they are excavated. Okay. Then this excavation support, I told you that your trench, it is susceptible to collapse. So to support that, you insert a bentonite slurry into it. Once that is done, then you put the reinforcement cage, and then you do the concreting. And while concreting, you have to pump out the bentonite which is rising, and that bentonite you don't discard it, but what you do is you can reuse it. Just you have to screen it so that whatever is the soil which is mixed with that bentonite, as I told you, it has very fine particles. It is a type of clay, you can say. Okay. So you can very well segregate the soil particles and the bentonite particles, or soil particles from that bentonite slurry. Okay, so you do that, and then again you reuse this bentonite slurry, because the only purpose of this slurry is to give us support. Okay, it doesn't have any structural significance, or we are not going to keep that slurry as it is for the further design life. Okay. So that's the thing to remember. Now this is the theory. I'll leave it to you to read the theory, and I'll go to the actual photographs. But before that, also one last point in the theory itself, that I told you that when this diaphragm wall, it is going to be constructed in panels. But what happens is we don't actually construct it in a rectangular form. So if you see the top view, so the top view, you see it's rectangle in center, but the ends is semicircular. Okay. So what is done is, when you excavate the trench, okay, at that time you insert such stop end tubes. Okay, I'll show the photo also for this. You just now, for now, just remember there is something called stop end tube. Okay, so that is inserted into the excavated trench on both the sides, and then the concreting and everything is done. And once the concrete sets, then this stop end tubes are removed. So at the end, you get this kind of a shape for your panel. All right, and then alternative panels are constructed. As in, if I construct this first panel, okay, this blue color indicates that it has been concreted. Okay, now concreting has been done. So when I do this or construct this first panel, then the second panel will not be the immediate adjacent one. The second panel will be the alternate one, that I'll call it as second panel. I'll do the concreting for that. And now once this panel 1 and panel 2 are constructed, now this portion in between, which I call the third panel, now that will be supported by the concrete wall on left side and right side as well. Okay. So now here there is the soil is now supported on both the sides, and whatever is the area in between, you have to now excavate it, and then you have to follow the same steps, that excavate, pour in the bentonite slurry, put the reinforcement cage, and remove the bentonite slurry along with concreting. Right. So that this is last step in it. Okay, or that's the last point that I had to tell you, stop and tube. Right. So again, this is the line diagram. I'll leave it to you to see it. I'll come to the actual photographs now. Okay. So now I hope you must have noted down. If not, just note down this 6 steps so that you will come to know from the photographs. I'll just write or tell you that this is the step 1, step 2. So first step, it is guide walls. In second step, you excavate the trench, or it's called trench excavation. Third step, it is excavation support. Fourth step, it is reinforcement. Fifth step, it is concreting. Okay. And this is not actually a step, but you have to construct the diaphragm wall in alternate manner. Okay. So coming to this first step, so as I told you, first you have to construct a guide wall. So guide wall is what it is. So this, you can see, it's simply just cement concrete that is poured to form a temporary wall kind of thing. Okay. And why I told you, because now you see here this excavator is there, which is standing very near to this trench. Okay. So to give a support kind of thing to all such machinery, the excavator, the pump, or whatever is the clamshell that you are going to use, so for that you need to build this guide wall. And while building, if you see, so initially some portion was excavated and a scaffolding type of thing was, this is the scaffolding that you see in the first figure on the top left, and then this guide wall is constructed. And once it sets, the concrete sets, then you can remove the scaffolding and then see the second figure, the one on the top right. Okay. So now this is the guide wall, and now once it is constructed, then you can proceed with the further things. So now you see over that guide wall, you have all kinds of supports. You have the pipes which are going to be used for concreting and also pumping the bentonite slurry. Okay. So that's the purpose of your guide wall. And the figure number 3 or photo number 3 on the bottom right side, there also you see there are some supports which are placed so that you have some machinery or some pumping kind of thing which can be done. So that's the purpose of your guide wall. That's the first step. Then in the second step, you have to actually do the trench excavation. So if you see here, what I told you, initially when this technology came into picture, or this diaphragm wall concept came into picture, so at that time the only thing that was available, the machinery that was available, was the grab or the clamshell that was used for dredging. Now for dredging, you saw it was a bucket kind of thing, or a huge, it was a combination of a rectangular, trapezoidal and circular kind of thing. But now in this diaphragm wall, we have to actually have a wall kind of structure. So they just modified that grab a bit. If you see the shape, so it is a perfect, almost perfect rectangle kind of thing that you have. Okay. Just the bottom side, it's a opening, so that's why you can see that grab or clamshell. But otherwise, it's a exact rectangle. If you see the 3D view also, okay. So it becomes a perfect wall kind of thing, or it excavates in such a way that whenever you concrete it and you remove everything from the side, it will look like a wall itself. Okay. So that's the grab or the clamshell that is used in all the three photos. You will be seeing this. Okay. Photo number 1, 2, and 3 also. So different views of the grab or clamshell have been shown. So the first one is the first photo shows the grab or clamshell. It is being lowered into this pit or trench. Okay. And the second one is actually the grab or clamshell which is coming up after excavating or grabbing all the soil. And then the third one is just a clamshell or grab which is kept on site open. Okay. So this is the second step, that you have to excavate the trench. Then, as I told you, that once you excavate the trench, you can't keep it like that for a long time. You have to give it a support. So that support is given by pumping this bentonite slurry. So if you see with an arrangement of pipe and pump, this is the bentonite slurry. It exactly looks like a mud. Okay, normal soil, whatever you take, if you mix water and make a slurry, you get a very muddy kind of slurry. So same way, it exactly same your bentonite slurry it looks like. Okay. So that is pumped into this, and then whatever is this excavated portion, it will be supported temporarily. Right. So here in the second figure on the right side, if you see, now this is the guide wall they are showing here. Okay. And then this is the grab or clamshell that is being lowered, and here you see there is a bentonite slurry. So this is the third step of our diaphragm wall construction. Now once that is done, now comes the part where you have to insert the reinforcement. Okay. Now understand that your trench has been excavated, there is bentonite slurry into it, and into that slurry itself you have to place this reinforcement cage. So this reinforcement cage, generally it is prepared on site, nearby that site itself, or in that site itself, okay, in some open area. And once it is prepared, then it is lifted using this crane. Okay. And it is made vertical, and in that way itself, or in that vertical way itself, it is lowered into the excavated portion. Okay. And there is still bentonite slurry in that excavated trench. All right. And in that itself, this reinforcing cage is lowered. So that's our next step, that addition of your reinforcement. And once you do that, now all you have to do is you have to start the concreting. So you have transit mixers, or you have a RMC plant on the site itself, and through that you use such Tremie pipe. Tremie pipe is nothing a big funnel kind of assembly. Okay, so hopper and Tremie pipe are used to pump in or place the concrete. Tremie pipe is the actual pipe, and hopper is that huge funnel kind of thing. Okay. And now we see there is concreting, and then side by side there will be pumping out of the bentonite slurry. So on the other side of this funnel, there will be an arrangement which is not seen in this picture. And the last step, or the sixth step that I had showed you, that there are stop end tubes. So these are the stop end tubes that I was talking about. Okay. So in this also you see it's a circular or cylindrical kind of thing. Okay. and on this side it's a trapezoid kind of a thing. So these are the stop ends. Okay. And in between then you have concreting, and once the concrete sets, then these are just removed. Right. So this is the process of construction of diaphragm wall in a pictorial form. Okay. And I told you that whatever is the bentonite slurry, so you can reuse it. So when you pump it out, you pass it through this desanding equipment, okay, or there is a machinery known as desanding machine. What it does is it takes the bentonite slurry which has been removed from the trench, and then it sieves it, and whatever is the debris is nothing but whatever is the soil which has been mixed with that slurry, so that is removed, and this you can see this is the debris or the filtered material or the unwanted one. And once that is separated, mainly this debris it might consist of sand or gravel or whatever is the type of soil which is there. Okay. And once this is separated, then you can again pump back that bentonite slurry, filtered slurry, into the next trench. Okay. So that's this desanding equipment. So this is all, or this is with the procedure. I hope you have visualized it, or I have tried my best to make you visualize that what actually goes into a diaphragm wall. First you have a guide wall, then you actually excavate the trench using clamshell. To support the trench, you pump in the bentonite slurry. With the slurry still in the trench, you place the reinforcement cage, which is assembled on the site itself. Okay. And then you place the stop ends, and then you start concreting, and simultaneously you pump out the bentonite slurry, and that pumped out slurry it is again filtered and then reused for the next panel of your diaphragm wall. Okay. So if I go to the applications, as I told you, diaphragm wall, it is not the main construction that is happening on your construction site. It is just a tool to support something, okay, or support your two phases, or soil on one side or empty area on other side, that kind of thing. But that is the very basic thing. You can use diaphragm wall for a lot of applications. So few of them I have shown here in picture form again. So this first photo, if you see, it's a huge site, and then this diaphragm wall, whatever you see, they have shown this is the diaphragm wall. Okay. In this photo, this is the diaphragm wall. Okay. Here you see this complete thing, it is a diaphragm wall. Okay. So in this, the first application, the basic one, it acts as a barrier. So in this case, if you see the second figure, the top right one, so here you can see the excavation still in process. So the diaphragm wall is constructed, and then this soil, it is excavated. Okay. And then ultimately you get this kind of an open area. So here your diaphragm wall, it is acting as a barrier. Okay. Now this was an excavation for a basement, for starting the basement of your building. So this diaphragm wall here, it was acting as a cutoff between your excavated basement area and the adjoining area. All right, so that is the first application of the diaphragm wall that you can have. It acts as a cutoff barrier. Right. Then it can also serve as a complete basement wall. So you know that any room, if I draw a bit shabby kind of a thing, okay, so this is a 3D view of a room. Okay. So obviously you have walls on all sides, and then you have a slab kind of thing. So now in this case, whatever is your diaphragm wall, it's a hardened reinforced cement concrete wall. So that itself can use as a wall for your any kind of a room or a basement, and then you have to just place slab over it. The same thing is done here. So the continuation is from this same application. So for this site, first this diaphragm wall, it acted as a cutoff between the adjoining areas and the excavation here. And once the excavation was done, then they had to build a basement in it. So for that basement, again, that basement will be utilized. So you will need walls for it. So instead of constructing another wall, they use this diaphragm wall itself as a wall for the basement. And if you see the first, I'll just number the photos. The first photo, top left one, if you see, so they have just connected the slab to the diaphragm wall. Okay, so the two sides of this basement, or the corner of the basement, two sides you have already the diaphragm wall. Now you just have to prepare the slab. Okay, and in the second figure, if you see, here they have drilled in some grooves into that diaphragm wall. So that will act as a sitting for a slab. So whatever is the connection between the slab and the diaphragm wall, so that will be done by this grooves. So either those grooves are in the form of holes mainly, and then nut and bolt. You have large nuts and bolts which will be inserted through the slab into the diaphragm wall. So that will help in connecting the slab to the diaphragm wall. Yeah, and in the third figure, if you see, now the diaphragm wall is there on the periphery, and they are just placing the slab. No need for another wall there. Okay. So this is the second use of a diaphragm wall application, that you can use it as a actual wall for any room or a basement kind of thing. Then diaphragm wall has a very large scale application in tunneling works, okay, or a metro project. If you have ever passed through the Swargate area in Pune, or there are many photos also on Instagram for on a metro, Pune Metro Rail page. I guess that's the name. So Swargate area, they are planning a station over there, and that's also the entry or one of the end of for your tunnel. Okay. So before you actually start that tunnel boring machine, you have to lower that tunnel boring machine. Okay. So what you do is you first have to excavate a huge area. Okay. You have to lower the level, and then you have to place your assemble your TBM machine or tunnel boring machine into it, and then you start the tunneling operation. So that excavated area that you have to do, or excavate a large area, so that is done by first constructing a diaphragm wall. So here in this you see, it's the example taken from Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong there is a central Wan Chai bypass. Okay. So in that, a tunnel had to be constructed, and first, before constructing the tunnel, they had to excavate a large area. So that was done, and for that, this diaphragm wall was constructed. If you see here, okay. So this is the diaphragm wall that they constructed, and then they excavated this area in between, and then the tunnel boring machine, it was lowered in this, and then the tunneling operation started. So a diaphragm wall, it acts as a support for your trenching cutting. Okay, so trenching cutting, it is a technique for opening up an area and then again filling it. Okay, so you cut the area, you remove the soil, and then you again fill it, okay, back to the normal. So that's another application. One more application is it can be acted as a coffer dam for a large building foundation. Now here what you see, it's a construction of an ICC tower in Hong Kong again. So for that ICC tower, it had a deep foundation, and first this diaphragm wall was constructed on, or a complete circular diaphragm wall was constructed, and then whatever was the area enclosed by it, then that was excavated, and then the footing started, or foundation started for that building. So here you can see the photographs are shown stage wise. So starting from top left, this was the diaphragm wall constructed. Okay. And then they started excavating the soil in between. Okay. Then in figure number 2 on the top right, you can see now the excavation was done, and now the footings they have started excavating or placing the footings, reinforcement and all that for the footings. Okay. Then bottom left, again, now the foundation was done and now the building has started constructing. Okay. So you see, this is the final building, and now you can't even see that there is a diaphragm wall at the bottom. Okay. So that just our diaphragm wall has gone below the ground level itself. Okay. So this is with the application of your diaphragm wall, and what I was talking about, a new technology in the trench excavation is nowadays, with instead of that grab or clamshell, you have this hydrophrase technology which has developed in recent years. So what it has is, it has these 5 components. Okay. It has a frame, it has a mud pump, cutting wheel, suction box, and steering flaps. So I'll just give you an overview. You can read about it through a link or internet. So this is what a hydrophrase frame it looks like. So that's the yellow color thing is the frame, and the bottom part, that's the actual cutting tool. Okay, they have shown the enlarged view also here. So this is actually the cutting tool, and it can rotate in both the direction. Okay. And then it has this mud pump attached to itself over here. Okay. So that mud pump will take care of the pumping in of the bentonite slurry. Not bentonite slurry, sorry. That mud pump will take care of whatever is the excavation done. So the excavation will be done along with pouring of some water, because this drill bit that get heated due to the friction. So there has to be water, presence of water to cool down. And once water you are using for excavation, so it will form a mud. Okay, the soil and the water, it will form mud, and that mud has to be pumped out. So that is done by this pump over here. Okay, and you can see that pump, it pipe, it goes up and it is collected. So this is the new thing that you can that is there nowadays for construction of diaphragm walls. Okay, so you can see that whole frame or that hydrophrase, it is operated by this huge crane, right? So for further reading, I found this good site. Now on this site, whatever I have included the theory part in this presentation, almost most of it is from this site, but in this site, at the bottom part of the page, when you open this page, you will see that there are a lot of videos related to diaphragm wall. So 5 to 6 videos of different animated videos or actual real life videos, they have compiled it at one place. So you can go to this site and you can check it. Okay. So this is all with the diaphragm wall. And the very last part of your syllabus, it is prefabrication. Now I'll not teach this part, because what you have in this part is what is prefabrication. So prefabrication is nothing but to construct something in a workshop, okay, or in a casting yard, and then you just transport that section onto the site and then you install it. Okay, so that is prefabrication. So whatever is the metro construction going on in Pune, you might have seen on the old Mumbai-Pune highway. So the segments of those girders, they are prefabricated, as in there is a casting yard in Kasarwadi, near the Kasarwadi railway station, and it's a huge casting yard. There they cast these girders and then they transport it on long trailers, okay, truck trailers, to the site, and then they are lifted. So that's the prefabrication process. So I'll leave it to you to read this. You will understand just by reading it what is prefabrication, what are its application, then what are its advantages and what are the disadvantages. Okay. So this is sort of self-study for you to do. So that's all with the lecture for today, and this is also the end for your unit number 3.